and welcome to the IB CDE Bootstrap Webinar. If I can please ask everyone to remain muted. We've had a few issues with WebEx, so if everyone can remain muted, that'd be great. My name is Scott Cunliffe. I'm the Managing Director and co-founder of IB. On this webinar, you will learn how to create a CDE-based dashboard using the new Bootstrap framework. So in terms of a little bit about IB as a business, we're a new company comprising two independent Pentaho consultancies with 30 years experience delivering data analytics projects. In terms of where we're going, we're anti-mega vendor, anti-establishment if you like, and open source data analytics consultancy. We use the best and most cost-effective tools, and we're aiming to be the #1 in the UK at doing this, and we are well on our way. In terms of services, we have delivery services, support services, and we're also developing bespoke tools through our labs division. So that's all I'm going to say. I'll pass on to Harris Ward, who is our technical director and co-founder. So over.
Hi folks, my name is Harris Ward. I'm a technical director here. Then we just accidentally muted Scott just before he signed off. So I'm sorry about that, Scott. It's a simple mistake. So yeah, like Scott mentioned today, we're going to go through a quick sample on how you can build a responsive CDE dashboard using the Web Details community tools, the Pentaho server, the Bootstrap framework, and all these dashboards built using this Bootstrap framework will work on your mobile devices, and they'll look very, very pretty, which is a big step for us, we think, to be able to have your dashboards working on your mobile phones and your tablets. Just before we get started, there are a couple of skills that you'll need when you build dashboards using the community dashboard editor. You need these even before you build Bootstrap dashboards. So what you need to know, you'll need to know the Pentaho BI server first of all, just a basic understanding. You'll need to know a little bit of HTML, nothing amazing, just some of the basics. The CDE requires a little bit of JavaScript knowledge and also a little bit of cascading style sheets. These are all web technology, so if you come from a web designing background, you should be pretty familiar with these technologies. Some of the things I want to cover really quickly, I want to create a simple layout using the CDE, using the existing Blueprint layout engine. This is what exists right now in the CDE and has existed for a couple of years, but it doesn't work particularly well on mobile devices. Next, we'll have a quick look at a Bootstrap layout, which has a little bit of knowledge, nothing too complex, but these layouts will work nicely on your mobile device, and I'll show you how you can resize the screen and see what the dashboard will look like. With the two parts out of the way, the layout, the next parts are creating obviously some CDE charts, some data sources, and a little bit of basic interaction between the components. So I'll start off, and let me grab my BI server. I'll just go over quickly how we can get the latest copy of the CDE, the Community Dashboard Editor. The trunk version comes with the Bootstrap layout engine now. So if we were to download the latest CDE, we can then use the Bootstrap layout engine and build these mobile dashboards. If you have a Pentaho server, obviously you'd land on the home screen. We would go to Home, click on the Marketplace, go down to the Community Dashboard Framework, review the details of that. We can see I'm set on trunk snapshot, and I could, in my case, install or upgrade. We have our own custom version for development purposes, but you would click the install button to get the latest version. Once you've installed the CDE, you'll want to restart your BI server before you can start using it. After restarting, we're going to go ahead and just look at some of the basics of building your dashboard. I would click File, New, and choose a CDE dashboard. And once it's loaded, we're presented with your basic screen for creating dashboards. It's broken up into 3 sections: layouts, components like charts and selectors, and data sources. I can go ahead now and show you quickly what a regular layout would look like using the old Blueprint layout engine. I've created a couple of files that I wanted to show. So we have a Blueprint layout. I'm going to open that in a new window. And let's see. And if I open this in a new window, you can see the basic Blueprint layout. This is something you could use to place your charts. And we have one row at the top, a second row with 2 columns next, and a third row with 4 columns. And this is a basic layout that you could use for your dashboard. The issue with this layout is that if I was to resize my screen and pretend that I was viewing it on maybe a mobile phone or a tablet, you'll notice that on the desktop it looks fine. If I was to resize it to maybe a tablet, maybe something like this, you know, it doesn't really size correctly. It doesn't actually reorder itself. If I was to pretend I was looking at it on a telephone, you can see it's not resizing. It's just adding these scroll bars so we could scroll around our dashboard. It's not what we call a responsive layout. It's just static and it doesn't change. This is fine for your desktops, but it's not really very good for your mobile devices. So I have another sample with the same layout, but built in Bootstrap instead. I'm going to open this one here. So I'll start with a full screen. Now I made this one look a little bit prettier because Bootstrap comes with certain CSS that we can use. And you can see this layout is the same as the previous one. It has 1 row at the top, a second row with 2 columns, and a third row with 4 columns. The difference with this layout is that if I start to resize my screen to, for example, like a tablet or a mobile phone, these boxes will reorder themselves correctly so they're rendered correctly. So I'm going to resize my screen to what a mobile phone would look like. And you can see that all the boxes have actually changed their size and stacked on top of each other. So the first row is still there, but it's very small. The second row, the 2 columns, have been placed above each other. And last of all, the last row, which had 4 columns, have also been stacked on top of each other. So in your mobile phone, this dashboard would look good. It would actually, we'd have inside each one of these items, we could have our charts, and we could scroll from top to bottom. This is the big benefit of using Bootstrap, the Bootstrap engine for building our dashboards. And now the CDE supports the Bootstrap engine as of a couple of weeks ago. So with that in mind, these 2 different layout engines, we're going to go ahead and we're going to have a look at the dashboard that I want to create today to show you how we can use this. So I have a final version here. I'll just open it in a new window. So here's a simple dashboard. This is based off one of the original Pentaho top 10 customers dashboards, which you may have seen over the past 6-7 years. It keeps looking nice with all the new tools that are developed. I keep rebuilding this dashboard. But here, in this example, we have the top 10 customers dashboard, and it's built with nothing but Bootstrap for its layout. This includes the buttons as well. So at the moment in the CDE, certain selectors don't work well with other selectors. They don't look very pretty. You might have a pull-down selector that looks different to your date picker, that might look different to some other, like a button component, for example. But because we use Bootstrap, we can make all our components and selectors look the same. So if I have a look, I have some selectors at the top, sales, some years, another put down, a simple limit, and a reset button, just a regular button. You can see it's all styled the same without very little effort. I'm using the default Bootstrap theming to do this. Each one of these squares is a panel, a Bootstrap panel, and inside each one of these squares we have CDE charts. So if we have a quick look, I'm going to resize this now to what looks like my mobile phone, and you can see my dashboard goes from a regular desktop view like this, and if I resize, the buttons at the top will get stacked, and all the other charts will also be stacked. So to resize, pretend I'm looking at mobile, and we can see that our buttons have changed. They're all stacked on top of each other, and all the charts have stacked correctly as well. Just like that. So in your tablet, because your tablet has a big screen, you can see that the buttons actually line up horizontally, but the charts are still vertical. If I pretend I was on the phone, because there's less space, everything stacks. So this is again like the big benefit of using our Bootstrap and Bootstrap within the CDE. So I'm going to start now. I have my just a quick example as well. Actually, this is a lot of charts inside another Bootstrap layout. Just to give you an example again, lots of different layouts, lots of different charts, and lots of different panels. But when I make it the size of a mobile phone, you can see that everything stacks and everything resizes on top of each other. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and actually get started with building a Bootstrap dashboard. If you're familiar with building CDE dashboards, it's very similar. The only difference is learning a couple of the rules about the Bootstrap. And a lot of this can be learned from the actual Bootstrap website. I'll make sure we've got links for all of this stuff in the email that I'll send to everybody at the end. But if you were to go to getbootstrap.com, here we can see this is the main website with Bootstrap and all the components. We can go to look at the basic tables. We can use these basic tables in our dashboard now. We can use forms. We can use the buttons, whether they're default or primary or whatever we like. We can also use some of the more advanced features of Bootstrap. We can use some of the other components. I'll give you an example here. We have drop-down menus, which you saw earlier. We have button groups of buttons. Button drop-downs again, which you saw earlier. You can put the navs in or the nav bars. These tabs, navigation bars, if you like. So this can all be built into your dashboards now. It's one-way work, many components, and everything looks good. So that's why we really, really like it. Not to mention it's mobile. Right. So back on course. I'm going to go ahead and start building this dashboard. I have a template to start with. It doesn't have much in it, but let me see. So it's a basic dashboard. I have a little bit of JavaScript in. That's just for my resizing of the charts. But if we were to build a new dashboard and click on settings, this is where we usually would choose our dashboard type. And in the past, we only had Blueprint and we only had mobile. Now we have our Bootstrap. That's the important thing. If you don't choose Bootstrap, you're not building a Bootstrap dashboard. So create a new dashboard and select Bootstrap and click Save. Now that we have our technically Bootstrap dashboard, we can go ahead and actually start adding in rows and divs, rows and columns, like I showed you in the example before. If I go to one of my previous examples, the layout, I'll open it again in a new window. I'm going to create something like this just to get started. We have the first item is one row, the second item is two rows, one row and two columns. And then of course the last row is 4 columns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of recreate this. I'm going to go to my dashboard and I'm going to add a row first of all. Again, if you come from the CDE background, you'll be familiar with the width of these columns. If I add a row, I can add a column. And we have a span size. with Blueprint and the original CDE, the maximum span size is 24 in width, or 24 little columns. In Bootstrap, it's a little bit different. It's actually 12 columns. There's not a huge difference. It's just, instead of 24, we're using 12. So if I wanted to create a layout with one row and technically one column, I would add the row, add one column, and say 12 width to make it the full size. So I'm going to add that in. One row, add a nested column, set it to a width of 12. I'll just quickly set its height to 200, so 200 pixels. Set a background color. Save my dashboard. And I'll just quickly preview it. And it's simple. It's one row, one column, and it's full width. Just if I was to change that column to 6 width, and save, and preview again, you can see it's half the width. I can put two columns side by side now, both with a width of 6. So I'll put another column in. You can see one row, two nested columns. Set the next column to 6. I'll also set the height to 200. I'll set a background color. Okay. I'll try and set that background color, so again. I'll also save. And I'll preview. Okay, so you can see there's my layout. It was a column with 6 and another column with 6. It's quite simple. To use and to utilize Bootstrap, we have some interesting little things. We have that example that I showed you here. This CSS, this comes from Bootstrap. I didn't have to write this. If you choose a Bootstrap dashboard, we can utilize some of the CSS that comes with Bootstrap. And these items are actually called panels in Bootstrap, and we can use them. We've already got the CSS for them, so we may as well use them. If I look at the main website for Bootstrap, I can see at the bottom on Bootstrap they're called panels, and it shows us how to build a panel with a header, a content area, or a header and a footer, and we can see the HTML that we would need to write if we wanted to build that. What I do is I like to copy this HTML and edit it, maybe online or in a little. I use JS Fiddle to edit my HTML. I test what it's going to look like first, and then I copy it later. So you can see here on the right-hand side, I've rendered this panel, and the code to render this panel, I've written it here. And while this is also responsive, you can see it working. It's actually a 6 wide panel, but if you make it smaller, it actually goes to full width. So you can see it's responsive here as well. I'm going to copy this panel. I don't need the columns or the other HTML. I just want the panel, the heading, the body, and the footer. I'm going to copy this HTML. I'll go back to one of my columns, and nested inside my column, I'm going to place an HTML object. I'm going to add that HTML to that column. Let's make it look a bit more pretty. I'll click OK. And if I save, and if I preview, you can see, apart from the background color set before, we can see that we have a panel on the left now, and nothing on the right. So I'm going to take away these background colors so they don't make things look ugly. Also take away the heights. The heights are actually defined inside that HTML. So the first column has some HTML, which is Bootstrap HTML, and the second column I'll also add some Bootstrap HTML, exactly the same. And you can get this HTML from the Bootstrap website, and you can test it in, like I was earlier, in JS Fiddle. I test it here. I could take the page header, and I could do, I don't know, let's do customer sales. Just run that just to see what it would look like, and there you go. If I like the look of that, then I can use that. So I put the panel into 2 columns, the panels into each column. I'll go to preview. So I can see now that I've got my panel and my other panel side by side. Now I'm going to open this in its own view and pretend again that I'm looking at it like a mobile device. See it actually work. That's template. Open new window. So there's our dashboard layout on a desktop. And if I was to pretend it's in a mobile, we can see it's done its responsive thing. It's stacked on top of each other. So just to go over that again really quickly, the most important part about building your dashboards in Bootstrap is each row has a column span of 12 width instead of 24. So we have two columns, one is 6 and the other is 6. And we have to place HTML inside these columns. And the HTML we place inside is Bootstrap HTML. I'll give you another example and take some other HTML from the Bootstrap website. Let's take the Jumbotron example. Let's take this. I'm going to take this HTML. I'm going to quickly test it inside my JS fiddle just to see what it looks like. It's hello world. I'll put some text in here. So we have this is the Jumbotron in Bootstrap. It's a component. And I'm going to copy that HTML. So back to my dashboard. I'm going to place this in the second column. I'll remove the panel and place this in the second column. So there's a little bit of HTML, nothing complex. Okay, save, and type my preview. So we have the page header, the panel on the left, and the Jumbotron on the right. It works with absolutely everything. We can continue. We can grab a button, for example. Let's do one of the buttons as well, just something simple that might actually be useful. Let's go some simple button code. If I want to render a button, the HTML for the button can be found on the Bootstrap website. I'm going to go here. I'm going to replace this section. I'm going to replace that Jumbotron with a button. Okay, I'll click save. My preview. We have a page header and a button. We can edit the button using a little bit of CSS. We say it's button and button default. I'm going to say button primary. That's a CSS class that tells the button to be a primary button, which I think defaults to the blue or green. There we go. It's a simple blue button that says default. So this is how we get the use Bootstrap within the CDE. We're going to go ahead now and start properly building up our dashboard. Because I'm going to grab the preview of our dashboard. Top 10 customers final. Let's open that in a new window. So if we look here, we see the layout that we want to create. So I'm going to pull that to the side so I've got something to reference. We're going to build that. We just edit. You can see on the screen, this is my top 10 customers dashboard. All I have are rows, columns, and HTML. There's another row, a column, in this case another row, another column, and Bootstrap HTML. I'm just adding HTML to my dashboard just to make sure I can get the layout correct, get the layout the way I want it. So I'll start by putting the first row in place. The first row is for the parameters up at the very top. You can see there's the parameters section, and that's the first section I'm going to build. So I'll go to my template. I'll just remove everything, so I start from the beginning. I'll save. I'll start by adding in a row. I'm going to then add at least one column. Make the column span 12, so it's full width. And set a background color so I can see it. Then we go to height. Save and preview. There we are. So it may get a bit taller in a minute. I'm going to do the next section, which, if we look here, the next section will be a row that will contain all three charts at the top. It'll be one row and two columns. The first column will contain two pie charts. The second column will contain the bar chart. In the first column, we'll have two rows, and then in each row, we'll have one column. It sounds a bit crazy, but all we're doing is nesting rows and columns. So I'll take that out of the way. I'll add another row, the entire content. I'll then add two columns. The first column I said would have 2 more rows inside, and each row must have at least a column. The second column that holds the bar chart, it should be fine as it is. I'll just double check. You have another row. Yeah, the second column is fine. And every single one of these items I want to add some HTML. I'm just going to put some dummy HTML in just now, so we can see the items and see where the HTML will actually exist. I'll add HTML for every column that I want to put content into. And I'll give it a wee preview, and I'll set some colors as well, just so we can see this. There's some color. And I'll just preview. Oh, I'll need to set my span widths for the columns. They haven't been set correctly. So I'll set the first column to 6. The other column also to 6, which equals 12. And save. And I'll preview that as well. So we can see I've got the layout. It's just got dummy text in there. I've got the parameters at the top. The left-hand side, the 2 rows will contain the pie charts. The item on the right will contain the bar chart. And last of all, I want to put one more row. We look at my example. One more row at the bottom for this chart at the bottom. I'll close this. I have my parameters row, my content row, and then my last row for the line chart. The last row contains one column, which is full width, 12. I'll add HTML to that as well. Dummy. And I'll just set its background color. And I'll just preview. It doesn't look particularly pretty at the moment, but this is the structure that we follow to build that dashboard. So I've got everything that I need in place, but this HTML is not very useful. It's not very good. I'm going to start using my panel HTML that I had from before. So I'm going to go ahead and just take it from my previous dashboard. That makes it a little bit easier. Here's some panel HTML from my other dashboard. I'm going to take that. I'm going to start pasting it into these items. The first row is parameters. It's not a panel. The second row has 3 items of HTML. So I'm just going to go in here, replace that dummy in the first panel, go to my next one of HTML, replace that dummy with another panel, and put last item and put that in there as well. I'm going to save. So I'm going to preview. I might need to adjust the heights of these panels, but they'll be in the right place. I'll also have to remove background colors at this point. So they're starting to look a bit ugly. Okay, so I'll take that. I'm also going to make my column, my second column, the height is 200. I'm going to take just a quick guess at the moment and say it's around about maybe, say, 430 pixels height. Also going to start switching off these horrible background colors as well. They're going to people off, I think. On my last row, I'm also going to add that dummy HTML. There we go. Make sure I have no color there either. Preview. You can see that it's starting to take shape. It's 100%. But we have 2 items on the left, 1 item on the right, an item at the bottom, and there's a space at the top. And we can see that here. There's a space at the top, which is still pink. 2 items on the left, an item on the right, and an item at the bottom. And this is again responsive, and it works in our dashboard. We can always do the test. Go to the template, open it in a new window, and we can see there that it is responsive. It has wrapped around correctly. Okay, so back to the actual dashboard itself. The next step is to maybe start creating a couple of charts. Now I'm going to create a couple of static charts, and I'm going to make one of the selectors edit one of the charts, and then make one of the charts edit another chart, just to create a basic selection. I'm going to just take some code from my previous dashboard. These are just queries that I've written in the past. I'll start here. Let's see, product line. I might actually write the queries from scratch, just to make it a little bit easier. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Psychoanalytics, but we use the Psychoanalytics plugin from Meteorite. These guys are very smart. It's a very nice analytical tool. I can just use this to quickly create my MDX. So I'm going to go to Steel Wheels. I'm going to make a quick query, which is going to be sales by territory. Right, a nice simple one. I'm also going to quickly put a filter in there as well for time. I'm just going to say, let's do it by 2004. Click OK. And it's a simple query. I'll then take my MDX query, and I want to use that in my dashboard. I'll go back to my template. I've done all the layout that I want to do for the time being. The next step would be to move to the data sources section. I want to choose an MDX query. I want to choose MDX over 1BN. Give it a name. Let's call mine Q1. Select my connection, which is sample data, and my catalog is Steel Wheels. I'm just going to pop that query in there. This query returns all the sales for all the markets. I'll just save. I don't need to save, but I like to save, just in case I click something incorrect and I lose my dashboard. So I have my layout, I have my data source, and it's a case of now building a chart. I'm going to go to charts. I want to build a pie chart, first of all. So I click on charts, I scroll down and I look for pie chart. You can see we have CCC pie chart. I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to call it pie1. I'm going to choose the data source, Q1. And usually we would choose an HTML object. An HTML object is where we want to actually attach our chart to on the dashboard. The issue with this at the moment is that we don't actually want to attach our chart directly to a column or a row. We want to attach it to some of the Bootstrap HTML that is inside a column or a row. So I'll quickly show you how we do that. I'm going to go to my HTML for one of my panels. And if we look here, we have the panel as a whole at the top. We have the heading for the panel, which I can see is select market. The next section is actually the area that's going to hold my chart. I've got a height of 200 pixels. There's no content in there at the moment. And it's got an ID of pie markets. So this is actually the name of my HTML object. I'm going to copy that. Pie markets, so div ID equals pie markets. I'm going to take that name. And I'm going to place it as the HTML object here, pie markets. Another thing worth pointing out is if I copied and pasted this, it's going to be the ID is going to be the same for all of them. So but pie markets, just so they're unique. We'll change the names of all these items. Customers. And that's all. I think months maybe. Click OK. Go to save. I have my layout. I have my data source. I have my chart. A chart just needs a name. It needs a data source, and it needs an HTML object. Somewhere to go on the dashboard. It's very basic. Save. I preview. And there we have it. I have a simple chart inside my inside the chart layout. I'm going to go file. Oops. I'm going to go and view this outside of my dashboard. I'm going to open. And it fits perfectly as well. So that's my first pie chart. Just so we speed up a little bit, I'll go back to my dashboard. There's another nice feature in the CDE document. You can duplicate components. So I'm going to just quickly duplicate this pie chart. And now we have two with the same properties. I'm going to call it pie2. I'm going to then use I've got the same query just now, but I'm going to attach it to, I think it was pie territories. I need a new query. I need a query for this, not of a market, maybe of a product line. So let me go to Cycle. I'll get a new query. I don't want territory. I'm going to put products. or maybe not products actually, maybe just product lines. Yeah, product lines. So I have the breakup of quantity sold of each product line. I'll also take that MDX now, copy that. Go to my data sources. I'm going to duplicate this data source, give it a different name. I'm going to give it a different query. Gives me product line data. I'll click save. Go back to my chart. I'll say don't use query 1, use query 2. If I save that and preview, we now have both charts now. We're starting to get a little bit closer to our dashboard should look like, one and the other. Okay, so the next step in this case is to create a bar chart for the top 10 customers. So I'm going to do a query again. Let's have a look. Say customer. Okay, I can take these. So I'm going to go to my site for analytics. I'm going to get my next query, which is going to be customers. Throw that in. So I've got all my customers. And I'm going to limit it, in this case, just to 10. I'm going to take my MDX. And I'm just going to put it into edit mode actually here. So I just quickly give it an edit. Say top count. That should do it. Oops. Top count customers. So do a little bit of editing via MDX. Customer children. Top count. I'm still, oh, there you go. Stop paying attention. Top count. Children, that's fine. Okay, maybe not. Maybe not right. For some reason, that query doesn't want to execute, so I'm going to try a different query. So again, file, new psychoanalytics. Right, just your wheels. I'm just going to get all the customers. A big list, but it will be okay. Put the quantity in there. Click the NDX. That's my template. Go to our data source. Duplicate that and call it query 3. Let's change the query. It's okay. I'm going to build a bar chart and call it bar 1. I'm going to give it a data source, Q3. And just to check where it should be, it's going into this HTML here, which is the second column. I'm going to check its name. It's div ID equals pi customers. It's actually, I'll call it bar customers. It makes a bit more sense. I'll take this. Okay. And I'll set the HTML object to bar customers. Save that. And preview. And as it's a bit messy, we can change and like reconfigure this up a little bit, but I'm just conscious of the time, so I'll just change a couple of properties. Let's see. Vertical. Oops. And preview again. Oh, I thought I set that rotation to horizontal, but maybe not. So anyhow, I have my layout. I have a couple of charts. I'm just looking at the time now and realize we've got about 15 minutes left. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly go for a selector and make this a little bit more dynamic. I'm going to add a selector that's going to filter this pie chart. We're going to have a select year, for example. What we can do is, there are button components and selectors, and you can add the HTML manually. In our case, we've actually done a little bit of work with Bootstrap in the past, before it was released publicly. And we have a couple of components ourselves. our own Bootstrap component. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and add in a Bootstrap select component. We have inputs and buttons, tables and panels and widgets, button groups and date pickers, but I just want my basic select. I'm going to add the select just now, my Bootstrap select. Give it a name, S1. I need to add a parameter to my dashboard to hold a value. So I'm going to add a parameter. I'm going to call it a simple parameter called param1. This is going to be for my, I'll call it param year. Name things a little better here. I'm going to set it to 2004. This will hold the value for my selector. I'll just save. I'm then going to go to my layout. And in my layout, I have the first row that has a column as an HTML. It just says dummy. This is my selector area. So I don't actually just want it just to say dummy. I have to put some divs in there. Div ID select 1. So when I put, this is where I'm going to attach my selector to. Select 1. Go back to my selector. And I'll say, first of all, use the param year. Second of all, I don't want a data source. I'm just going to populate this parameter manually. I'm going to attach it to that div. I'm going to set in a values array. 2003 is one of the options. 2004, I think. And last one, 2005. Okay, click save. I've just edited my layout. I've added a simple parameter to the dashboard that holds our value, and I've also added a selector and hooked everything up. So you notice it's a little bit ugly because of the paint there. We can see I have a Bootstrap selector where we can choose the years that I want. I'll just quickly take away that. Now that we can select the year and change the selector from 2003, 2004, or 2005, I'm going to quickly set one of my charts to listen to that and then to change, to filter on that year. I'm going to go to my first pie chart, and I'm going to tell it, first of all, to listen to the parameter year. If it ever changes, then to do something. So I tell it to listen. I tell you, well, what parameters do you actually want to utilize? And I'm going to say utilize param_year. Like that. So now that chart will change every time the selector makes a change to param year. If I preview it and change, nothing happens at the moment, but that chart, you can see it flickers for a second because it's saying I'm listening and I'm changing every time your selector changes. But we're not actually passing the value down to the chart yet. We're passing it to the chart, but we're not passing it to the data source. So I need to now go to the data source Q1 and parameterize that data source. So I go to Q1, I click on the query, and here we can see there's the static year of 2004. I want to replace this with the value of the parameter. And to do that, we do a $, curly brackets, and the name of the parameter, and we call it param_year, like that. And that's how we parameterize our queries. We take the static value and it's $, squiggly bracket, and the name of the parameter. I'll click OK. I also need to tell the data source what parameters to actually use in the query under the parameters section. So I'm going to click parameter section, let's click add. And we'll say param_year. And the value is going to be the value of param year as well. I'll click OK. I'll save. And then I will also preview. So at this point now, the chart has rendered. It should have rendered for 2004. Let's give it a retest. We can see that this first section, the APAC, is 5,938 units. I'll change it to 2005. We can see now that APAC has actually changed to 2,411 units. So we know that our selector is actually working. It's filtering this chart below. Just this one chart at the moment. What I want to do next, I'm going to actually make it the pie chart filter the bar chart on the right. So we're going from selector down to pie chart, and then pie chart across to the bar chart, which is another important feature when building the dashboards. To do this, we need to create another parameter, which is going to hold the value of that pie chart that we clicked. I'm going to call it market, I guess. I'm going to set it to APAC, which is one of the markets I have. And then I'm going to go to my pie chart and attach a click action to it. I'm going to first of all make it clickable. So if I click on my pie chart, something will happen. I'm going to say, when the pie chart is clicked on, I want you to execute something. And I have a little bit of HTML, a little bit of JavaScript here that we need. I'll go through it very quickly. We click on the click action. We say, when a wedge on the pie chart is clicked, we want to execute a function. So we're going to execute a function called D. It's an enormous function. And when it's clicked, we want to execute a special CDE method that will re-execute or set parameters in dashboard. And it looks like this. It's dashboards.fireChange. So we're telling the dashboard to change a parameter's value. And we're saying, well, change in this case, I'm going to call it not param product line, but it is param market. I'm going to say, when you click on the pie chart, change the value of param market to the wedge that we clicked on and its value, the wedge.vars.category.value. So what if I click on change param market to the value? I click OK. I save. And I need to tell the bar chart to listen to that particular parameter. So I'll take that parameter, I'll go to the bar chart, I'll tell it to listen to the param market. I'll then go to the parameters and say, sure to pass this parameter to the data source. I'll then go down to the data source, Q3. I'll tell it to use that parameter in the data source here. The last line to edit my query. Here I have customers.members. I input a where clause. So I'm going to quickly grab a where clause from here, just so I get the syntax correct. Market. Sorry. Just so I don't mess up my syntax. Okay. I'll put a where clause inside MDX. So where market dot, and then I need to put the name of the market here. I could put APAC like we had before with 2004, but I'm going to put in the value of the parameter. So I'm going to put that. We put param underscore market. So the idea is that we click on the pie chart, we click on a wedge on the pie chart, we set the value for the parameter. This bar chart listens for that parameter value to change. When it does change, it'll re-render itself, use that value in the data source, and give us some data back. Click OK. Click Save. And preview. And if everything's gone to plan, it should work. So by default, it's set to APAC. I'm going to try and click on a different wedge. Oops, did I make it clickable? Maybe not. Let me just double check. Clickable true, click action. See, function D, that was a fashion param market. Let me just try to put the right values here. Param market. See, one. Should be okay. Save. I'll just check my query as well. Coders markets. Market should be okay. Let me just query. Try one more time. I may have made a small mistake somewhere. It's not uncommon, but especially when you do things live, I guess. Oddly enough, when I click on that pie, wedge is not defined. I see the issue. Quite simply, what's happened is on my actual click action, I haven't passed in the wedge, the function. You can see I'm trying to get the value of wedge.vars.category.value, but I haven't passed it into the function. It's not available. So we do function D and then the wedge that I click on. That is the problem there. Quite a simple one. Luckily, we have the browser debugger to tell us that was the issue. If I preview again, try one more time. So we have our bar chart. I'm going to choose a different wedge. And we can see that each time we click on an item on the pie chart, we're filtering on the right-hand side. So just to sum up, what we've covered is using the basics of building the layout. Building your layout using Bootstrap, and you really are you're limitless in what you can do with some of the Bootstrap HTML. If you use Bootstrap, not only are your dashboards consistent in their design, but they also work on the mobile devices. We think that's a huge, huge thing for us here. We've also covered quickly how to build a couple of charts, build a couple of data sources, and also make them selectable, whether we use pull-down selectors like this to change maybe to 2005 or 2003, and also to be able to click on a particular chart to build another chart. With these basic, this basic knowledge, you're able to build pretty complex dashboards and without much difficulty. My recommendation would be to check out the Bootstrap website for a list of all the components that you can use and all the components you can write. There's a huge amount you can do there with Bootstrap. I think Joel's been answering questions, and if there are any other questions, guys, if you were just to drop us an email, we're actually going to drop an email out at the very end later on today to you guys to get a little bit of feedback and tell us how well we did. And we hope that you've enjoyed that. Any questions, drop us an email. If not, we'll be getting in touch anyway. And thank you for your time, guys. Appreciate it.